The Assembly will hear an address by His Serene Highness, Prince Albert II, Sovereign Prince of the Principality of Monaco. I request protocol to escort His Serene Highness. On behalf of the General Assembly, I have the honor to welcome His Serene Highness, Prince Albert II, Sovereign Prince of the Principality of Monaco, and invite him to address the Assembly.
Monsieur le Président.
President of the General Assembly, Secretary General, heads of state and government, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. Allow me to say how pleased I am to be here with you, because at a time when 2 years have passed since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, this unprecedented health crisis revealed our fault lines in multilateral cooperation and coordination. It forced us to take extraordinary social and economic measures, both to protect our people and also to mobilize international monetary system. Our frenetic day-to-day existence means that we forget that in the Northern Hemisphere, the overshoot day arrives earlier every year, and it should alert us to the fact that what we are imposing on the planet, whose resources we are inexorably exhausting. Yes, indeed, President, the theme that you've chosen for this general debate today reminds us that we are indeed at a watershed moment that requires transformative solutions to address interlocking challenges before us. President, allow me to express my warmest congratulations to you on your election to preside over the 77th session of the General Assembly, and also to thank your predecessor who demonstrated the leadership of a small island developing state. We share your conviction regarding the need to achieve the SDGs that we defined collectively in 2015, and also preserve, in so doing, our environment and ensure the survival of humanity. This 77th General Assembly marks a decisive year for the implementation of the 2030 Agenda. Rest assured of full support of the Principality of Monaco in the preparation for important upcoming deadlines. I'm thinking particularly about the Conference on Water, the SDG Summit, and the Summit of the Future in 2024. President, exactly 100 years ago, Prince Albert I passed away, my great-great-grandfather. This humanist and visionary sovereign advocated tirelessly for the fundamental role of science to drive social progress, particularly within the framework of political decision-making. A century later, we are commemorating his legacy, which continues to inspire my action and the policies of my government. Monaco is playing its role in collective efforts to preserve our planet at a time when the world is at a point where our ways of living are being turned upside down, as well as international relations. President, globalization that we're currently experiencing has accentuated our independence, but also the ties between humankind and nature. Ecosystems are currently unable to regenerate because of our modes of production, which are mainly focused on the use of natural resources and the frenetic rate of consumption. That 2020 was the only pause in the degradation of global ecosystems speaks volumes as to what we are collectively able to accomplish, for better or worse, either in an emergency fashion or more long-term. Indeed, when faced with an emergency, research and innovation allowed for rapid production of vaccines, which we very much welcome. Questions of public health and preparations for other pandemics remains a priority, much like equitable access to prevention and care. I attach particular importance to ensuring that my country rallies its international cooperation policy alongside its partners. First and foremost, the World Health Organization, in order to strengthen the global health architecture. We will therefore look very closely at any new crisis management mechanism which could facilitate a coordinated response based on verified science so that we do not repeat the difficulties faced at the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. President, it's been for the 3 decades now that the IPCC has been warning us about the disastrous, often irreversible effects of climate change. In June last, during the conferences in Stockholm and Lisbon, we once again saw the intrinsic link between the well-being of human civilization and respect for the planet, including the ocean as one of its key components. The protection of our seas and oceans is part of a family tradition, a cause for which Prince Albert I dedicated his life. His commitment is an example to me, an example that lives on in the commitments of my country and that I've chosen myself to follow since I acceded to the throne in 2005. Beyond our speeches and words, it is high time to move towards action. This is nothing more or less than an issue of taking the last opportunity we have to build a future for humanity. While extreme climate events are multiplying, affecting indiscriminately all nations, but particularly punishing the most vulnerable, strengthening adaptation measures must be at the heart of our priorities. I'm thinking particularly for the people of Pakistan suffering of the consequences of terrible flooding. These urgent and crucial efforts must be carried out in concerted way with policies that seek to drastically reduce greenhouse gas emissions and reverse the trend of biodiversity loss by 2030. Every country, depending on its own circumstances and needs, must radically transform its economy in order to decarbonize and contain the rise in temperatures. Monaco remains resolutely committed to protect the environment and also to sustainable development. Thus, the Principality is continuing its energy transition to achieve a reduction in greenhouse gas emissions of 55% by 2030 and to achieve carbon neutrality in 2050. In this connection, the most recent report from the IPBES is very clear. Tools and solutions to build a sustainable and fairer future for future generations already exist. We need to implement them. A duty of solidarity is required so that we can collectively manage to succeed in this energy transition. Upcoming deadlines in 2020, both within the Climate Convention and that on biological diversity, must allow us to really pave the way for sustainable societies. When faced with such challenges, a failure would be simply unacceptable. President, Prince Albert I was, my great-great-grandfather in my eyes, an example of being open to others. He was keen to learn and listen to the most cutting-edge of minds. And giving the Principality a constitution, he made it a constitutional state. And while the First World War was on the horizon, he sought tirelessly to convince the future warring parties to find a peaceful solution to their disputes. Today, at a time when numerous conflicts continue to sow terror, despair and chaos around the world without us being able to stop them, war has unfortunately returned to the European continent. The military aggression against Ukraine is flagrantly flouting international law and the principles of the United Nations Charter, undermining the security and stability of Europe and of the world. It is inflicting, inter alia, on the unutterable suffering on the Ukrainian people, which remind us of the darkest hours of our history. Indeed, I welcome the conclusion of an agreement on the aegis of the United Nations allowing for the export of Ukrainian grain through the Black Sea, and we urge all stakeholders to respect the terms of this. Global food security, which was already precarious, depends on it. Let us not forget either that women and children remain the main victims of food scarcity, and this exacerbates a vicious and intergenerational cycle of poverty. Monaco has made this issue one of its priorities for cooperation and allocates almost a third of its ODA to this. We are resolutely committed in the long term to fight malnutrition, to supporting small-scale local producers, school canteens, and to develop sustainable agriculture. President, the extreme tensions that are continuing to expand, and we know the number of conflicts around the world, the number of civil wars around the world, which is a terrifying number. This means that we need to recast our peace agenda. In his speech, President Macron mentioned these high number of civil wars. So there's a great change marked by globalizations, and this is now followed by digitalization of our societies. While this is an area where the private sector plays a leading role, it is indeed this area, technologies and ICTs. In this connection, we must reconcile development of these technologies with the protection of human rights and personal data. President, the summit that brings us together here at the start of this week also demonstrated that new technologies are at the basis of transforming education. We must use this well in order to adapt our education systems around the world to today's world and the world of tomorrow. I would like to thank the Secretary General for this initiative, which saw a high number of young people participating. Cyberspace cannot become an area of clashes, but on the contrary, should be a further opportunity for cooperation. The proliferation of hate speech and disinformation is quite simply intolerable. Artificial intelligence should benefit humankind and should not manipulate its behavior and way of thinking. It is high time that we established shared rules that cyberspace doesn't go out of control, doesn't destroy our democracy, and doesn't further separate us from each other. President, at the end of the general debate of this 77th session, more than 2/3 of the members of the General Assembly will have been represented by their head of state or government. Here, I wish to see a reaffirmation of the crucial role played by the United Nations of the Charter and also of multilateral diplomacy. We must step up our efforts to re-establish trust so that, as the preamble of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights states, is a recognition of the inherent dignity of all members of the human family and their equal and inalienable rights, constitutes the foundation of liberty, justice, and peace around the world. Strengthened and effective multilateralism, where young people and women will play a leading role, is the most effective way of addressing global crises. Because women are key players for change, gender equality and economic empowerment of women are the foundation of a more sustainable world. What are we waiting for, then, to promote their place in global leadership? Monaco plans on continuing its commitment within the work of UN Women through its development cooperation policy. My delegation plans on contributing to the work of our organizations to together build more efficient and more inclusive multilateralism, working for the well-being of humanity and of the planet. Thank you for your attention.
On behalf of the Assembly, I wish to thank the Sovereign Prince of the Principality of Monaco for the statement just made, and I request protocol to escort His Serene Highness. The Assembly will hear an address by His Excellency Charles